Hello, the following YouTube presentation is geared for parents who have students that could use tutor.com and tutors that may be interested in contracting with tutor.com. I've divided this presentation into two sections. The first is for parents and the second section is for tutors. When I'm recording this, I notice there's quite a bit of hiss on this audio. I apologize for that. I did try to mess with my audio settings and can't seem to get rid of the hiss for some reason. Anyway, I'm going to proceed. Just to give you a little background about myself, I am a retired engineer. I have been working for tutor.com for about 4 months now, tutoring math, elementary levels through high school calculus. And my goal here is just to provide a balanced perspective for parents and tutors considering either using or working for tutor.com. First, I'll start out with pluses. This is for parents. Overall, I think tutor.com is a good resource for students. I'll give you a few reasons why I think this is. Tutors all pass aptitude tests, which drives up quality. Also, if a tutor may get over his or her head when dealing with a student, there are mechanisms to transfer students if they are having trouble with a particular problem. And also tutor.com provides many other resources to tutors, including mentoring and other resources that enhance classroom sessions. Continuing on with the next slide, I'll provide some other things that I consider pluses. Tutor.com is very serious about protecting students. All sessions are anonymous and recorded. And any contact between tutors and students outside of the electronic classroom is prohibited. Obviously, profanity is prohibited. And another thing that tutor.com provides are strategies for dealing with troubled students. This next slide, I'll just cover a few things that I might consider minuses, things to consider. If you're a parent, this service really does not work well for students that may be really struggling. In other words, they may not have some grasp of fundamentals or maybe have some attention issues. The reason for this is, well, there's really just so much a tutor can do in the electronic classroom environment, which is somewhat limiting. Basically, the tutor has a whiteboard and text available to communicate with the student, and that's about it. And then the other reason is that sessions may be timed. There are suggested time restrictions placed on certain sessions. These aren't hard and fast times, but they do, tutor.com does encourage tutors to wrap up sessions within these predetermined time limits, which are on the order of about 18 to 20 minutes. And for some problems and some students, that's just fine, but for other students that may be struggling or for more complicated problems, time constraint can be an issue. On this next slide, I'll cover a couple of caveats for parents. I believe the service works best when the student can present a specific problem. The more specific, the better is what I'm saying, before going online. And the way the service works is that you articulate a problem, and then the tutor has a chance to review the problem and accept it or pass it on depending on the tutor's background and level of expertise. I've noticed quite a few times over the last 4 months where you may get a student that says something like, I need algebra help, or I need calculus help, and then the tutor goes into that session really not knowing the specifics of the problem. So the message here is the more specific the student can present the problem, I think the better the session will be overall. The other thing I noticed, it's not super common, but it does happen that some students are there just to answer shop. And so if you're a parent, this has to be discouraged. Tutor.com is supposed to be a tutoring service, not an answer shop. Now moving on to tutors, I'll start with some of the pluses that I've seen over the last few months. You will have to pass aptitude tests, which drives up quality, so that's a good thing. The tests that I've taken so far, I tutor all in the math area. Each test is either 2 or 3 hours long. They're timed tests, and you have to pass with a score of 80%. And I think these tests are a fair assessment. I wouldn't call them easy by any stretch of the imagination. So they do test your grasp of the subject area. It took me about 3 days to prepare for each test. I've taken 6 of them so far. I have been out of the academic arena for quite a while, so a lot of this was just review for me. If you're in college or even in high school and considering tutoring, you may not have to prepare as much as I did. Again, I've been out of the academic realm for quite a while, so a lot of review was necessary for me to pass the test. But it took me about 3 days to prepare for each test to pass them. Okay, the next slide, I'll cover some more pluses. It's very convenient to tutor with tutor.com. You can do it from your desk at home. All you really need is a decent computer. Mine's not super fancy, it's just a Toshiba laptop. But you do need a high-speed internet connection, either cable modem or if you're lucky enough to have fiber optic, even better. The high-speed connection is necessary to conduct the sessions using their electronic classroom. I thought that overall the support services that tutor.com have laid out are pretty strong in terms of getting through the onboarding process. I thought that was straightforward and well explained, and their administrative support is also strong. They do pay on time from my experiences, and they do use direct deposit, which is convenient as well. Next, I'll cover some of the minuses that I've experienced while tutoring with tutor.com. Pay is pretty low. That's just a heads up. The rate that's advertised is in the range of $10 an hour. But as you'll see over the next couple of slides, the actual pay is quite a bit lower than this when you start to weigh in the amount of time that you have to invest tutoring with tutor.com. The first thing to note is that when you start off with tutor.com, you're going to be a probationary tutor. And the issue with that is that you'll have rather limited access to their tutoring schedule. More on this on the next slide. Probationary tutors are required to tutor 5 hours per week. And sort of the dilemma that you run into is that by the time the online schedule opens for probationary tutors, the schedule is usually full for the following week. In other words, tutors that are the veteran tutors have typically taken a lot of those tutoring slots. So in order to get the 5 hour per week requirement in, you have to make yourself available to tutor online. And it's suggested that probationary tutors be available during peak demand periods when the inflow of students can dramatically increase. So as I indicated on the previous slide, as a probationary tutor, you're going to have to tutor 5 hours per week. And in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to be in kind of a standby mode online, waiting for students to come online. And I would guess my ratio of tutor to wait time is in the area of 5 to 1. So for every 1 hour that I'm tutoring, I'm probably waiting online for 4 or 5 hours, which is not a great ratio, and I'm qualified in quite a few math subjects, so I can only imagine that if you're qualified for a lesser number of subjects, that ratio is even going to get worse. And then the issue with this is that probationary tutors are not compensated for this wait time. Now, if you get promoted beyond the probationary level, which I have not been promoted yet, but if you do, then you have better access to the schedule, and if you're officially on the schedule for a particular time slot, you will get compensated for wait time, but that is not the case for probationary tutors. So this is what really drives down your hourly wage. If you consider you're spending 4 or 5 hours in the standby mode for 1 hour of pay, that drives down your actual hourly rate to more of the $2 an hour range. So just beware of that. Just a few words about mentors on this next slide. Every session that you conduct with a particular student is recorded and then reviewed by a mentor. I appreciate mentor feedback. I'm not a teacher or a formal educator. So the feedback can be good. There are times when the feedback can be a little frustrating. So that's just more of a heads up than anything else. You will be mentored, you will have oversight, and you will get feedback, and the feedback is almost continual. So you're just going to have some patience with mentors. That's more of a heads up than anything else. The next bullet here is that sessions may be timed. I don't know exactly why this is. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to present them on this video. But just be aware that you may have suggested time limits for sessions. These aren't hard and fast time limits, but what happens is that when you approach the recommended time limits for a session, you'll get a message from tutor.com saying that, and you'll be encouraged to wrap up the session within these allotted time limits. So the bottom line, that tends to rush sessions depending on the nature of the student or the nature of the problem. These time limits can be fine, but sometimes it does tend to rush things on a little bit. It's just been one of the frustrations I've had with the service. Okay, this is the last slide. This is meant just to be a wrap-up. A lot of the stuff I've covered already. For parents, I do see this as a good service. For students, just maybe be aware of some of the limitations I covered in this presentation. For tutors, I got to say it's very convenient. That's the one very positive thing about tutoring with tutor.com. You can do it from home, and you don't need to invest a lot of money. You do need to have that high-speed internet access, though, so just be aware of that. There are some minuses. I've covered most of these. You will have, at least starting out, very limited access to the schedule, which means you're going to have to invest quite a bit of time, your own time, without getting paid. That's just the nature of the beast. You also have to account for the time that you're going to have to invest in preparing for and taking the examinations. And for my case, that was not a trivial amount of time. I did have to spend quite a bit of time preparing for the test. You will be faced with some time limitations during sessions. That can be kind of an irritation, I guess I'll say. And you are going to get quite a bit of oversight from mentors. And if you're not used to receiving oversight, that can be a source of frustration. So just be aware that that will be in your future if you decide to tutor. And then a key thing to be aware of is that overall the compensation is going to be, I think, a little bit lower than you might expect. This wasn't as much of an issue for me because I'm not doing this for the money. But if you're looking for more of a serious income supplement and you want to tutor as an income supplement, this is probably not the best fit for you. If you're a younger college student, for example, that doesn't mind tutoring odd hours and just looking for a little bit of extra spending money, this is an excellent fit, I think. So just be aware of that. Compensation is going to be lower than you might expect. And that's all I have. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Hope you have found it useful. And again, I apologize for the audio quality.